Welcome to Remake TV. I am Jasmine Bowen and you are watching The Elephant in the Room. Now today we are tackling the very controversial topic of teenage marriage. But before we get there, let me tell you about this great contest that we have going on. Do you want to win $500? $500! That's right. It's so easy. All you have to do is go to our website, which you're already on, click on our contest banner, and you can win $500 just for referring your friends to all the great stuff that we do on Remake TV. You're already watching a video. Why not get paid to tell them about it? So click on the contest banner, enter your friends' names, and there you go. You're entered to win. We do a winner monthly, and at the top secret end of our contest, you can win $10,000. That's right, $10,000 just for entering and telling your friends about the video you watched today. Why not, right? All right, so right back to our topic, teenage marriage. Now this is something that was a big deal, very normal way back in history. If you were in the 1200s, you probably got married at age 12. In the 1700s, it wasn't uncommon to be married at 16 and have a bunch of babies by the age of 20, 22. But now, these days, the median age for marrying in Canada is actually 31, 32. This is the average age that people get married at. In the US, it's a little bit lower, 28 and 29 is the average age, but there are exceptions to every rule, and that's why we have Rachel joining us today. Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure, anytime.
Now, Rachel did not get married at the average age of 28, 29, 32. Rachel, what age did you get married at?
I was married at 17.
17, dear God. Now, what was the story there? What happened?
Well, he was a Marine, and we had known each other since I was about 13 years old, and had been dating since I was 16, and he was deploying to Iraq. And actually, to be honest, at first I really didn't want to get married at all.
Ever? Like you were the girl who didn't want to marry?
No, I never really dreamed about it. It wasn't something I really thought I wanted in my life. And then he kind of really convinced me into it. Well, I mean, I wanted to be with him, of course. I loved him very dearly. I still do. He was deploying, and I was afraid.
Yeah.
He's infantry, so he was going to be in combat situations. And to be honest, I wasn't 100% sure if he would be coming home or if he'd be okay.
Okay.
And if you're not married to them, you don't get any information whatsoever.
Right.
About their whereabouts, if they're okay. I knew I couldn't depend on his family to get that to me. They weren't very fond of me at the time. So it was kind of a thing of necessity where I loved him, and if I wanted to know if he was okay or not, I had to be his wife.
Okay. Now, where you met him online, so where did he live?
Yes, he lived in Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And I lived up in Washington State.
Okay.
And we just kept contact for several years as best friends with phone calls, letters, internet. I mean, he was my best friend since I was 13.
Okay. So he's deploying and you decide to get married. Now, was he 17 as well?
He was 19.
He was 19, so he's a couple years older than you. So how did you get married? I mean, it's not legal to marry until 18 without parental consent. So what was your story there?
Well, I had parental consent. I was going to turn about 18 in like a month or so.
Okay.
So, and I think my parents kind of figured that, you know, if something had happened and they had refused this to me, if like I hadn't, if they hadn't given me their consent, then, you know, and if something had happened, I think they knew that I never probably would have gotten over that. And I think they're really the kind of parents where they're very supportive of me and my choices. They believe that as long as I really think something through, it's okay to do something, even if it ends up being a mistake, as long as you learn from it. So they wrote a letter that got notarized, giving their consent, and they sent us to Vegas.
They sent you to Vegas, so they were totally behind you, 100%.
Yes.
I mean, you didn't sneak off.
Nope.
No.
No, there was no sneaking.
Now, did his parents know?
No.
No. Oh dear. Now, I know they didn't necessarily need to know, I mean, because he was overage, but...
Right. No, in fact, they still don't.
They still don't know?
Well, not about the Vegas one.
Okay.
So that's kind of like our little dark secret that we eloped to Vegas. It's actually funny because we ran into his family while we were there.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
So what happened? I mean, tell me the story.
So we went to Vegas and we ended up arriving a bit too late to get married that first night. So we went the next day, and his aunt is a frequent visitor of Vegas. And they actually ended up being there at the same time. They're like, oh, we heard you were in Vegas. Why don't we all go to lunch? I'm like, oh my God, they know.
Oh my goodness.
They know. They didn't know. They didn't know. So we went out to lunch with them and hung out with them that whole day, and they had no idea that we were married.
Okay, so you got married in Vegas with only the consent of one family.
Yes.
Wow, and how did that feel? I mean, walking around at 17, you were still in high school.
Yes, yes. In fact, we kept that a secret from the high school at the time. I finished my senior year there married.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. It was really short. It was really nerve-wracking. I actually got very ill, mostly because of the anxiety of him deploying. That trip to Vegas was the last time I saw him until he returned about 9 months later.
So your first, most of your first year of marriage was not even really a marriage.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was the once in a while you get phone calls, and a lot of those were things you didn't want to hear. Mm-hmm. It was pretty hectic, and then I was trying to graduate high school early. Mm-hmm. It was emotional. I was an emotional wreck the whole senior year. And then no one really understood why. They just thought I was engaged, and I actually got a little bit of bullying for that. Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that? Why would you get bullied for being engaged? I mean, most girls squeal over a beautiful ring.
Well, I mean, I was 17. Right. Well, I guess I turned 18 by that point, and that's not really well accepted so much. In fact, you get a lot of looks. You get a lot of judgment. You get a lot of, oh my God, are you stupid? You're just throwing your life away. Like, everyone thinks they're going to live happily ever after. It'll never work out. I actually had someone tell me he wasn't coming home.
Wow, someone told you this at school?
Yes.
Wow.
But my friends were supportive. I think they understood a bit more what was going on in my life. They didn't know I was married, but... Yeah. Forget my dear friends for not telling me. But, it kind of feels like you against the world. Mm-hmm. And when I'm sure that other couples in that situation at least have each other to lean on. Mm-hmm. But he was gone. Right. So it really did feel like you're just the only one there, and you just have to survive it. Right. And yeah, you're right. You were alone. Now, you had a big wedding that summer, right? So the cat was out of the bag then. Yeah. Well, not that I was already married, but then we were married. Like, his family thought we were just engaged. And they came, and it was actually a beautiful ceremony, but there was already problems going on by that point. With you and him? Yes. So tell me about that. So you had your big wedding, and what was going on? I mean, you're committing in front of all these people. People are giving you wedding gifts and money and all of this, but you knew walking down the aisle there were already issues. Oh, yes. War, it changes people. Mm-hmm. And not just war. I think life does, really. But I think he had just seen so much that going back to kind of a life of normalcy, or just a situation where it's just like a happy wedding, it doesn't go over well. It's not something easily done. So he came back, and he was happy to see me and happy to be home, but it was like nothing was right. Right. he came back completely, almost like a completely different person.
Right.
And we were having such a hard time. He was just so angry all the time. And there was nothing I could do to make it better. I honestly believe if we had not already been married, we would have called it off.
Right. So when he was, I mean, this anger, was it physical, emotional?
Oh, emotional.
Okay.
I mean, physical in the way that a couple walls got punched.
Okay. And this is actually kind of common for soldiers coming back.
Yes, yes. In fact, the night terrors you really have to look out for.
Okay.
Actually, I don't even know if I should say this on television. He was not conscious, so I don't think it counts. He broke my nose in his sleep.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What happened? What was going on?
He was having a nightmare, and his hand just went out.
And he broke your nose.
Yeah. And it hurt for about, like, a couple months.
Did you get medical attention for that?
No, it was just a crack in the cartilage, and it was sore for a long time. It didn't need hospital or anything.
Wow.
But the funny thing is, he didn't even wake up.
Until the next morning when you're bruised and bloody.
Yeah, like, those are they come back and they're just, they think they're still there, you know? So you just have to, I started sleeping on the far end of the bed.
Well, for your physical safety.
But that part didn't last long. That was just the first couple weeks.
Right.
But no, just emotional.
Yeah.
Really. Just the anger. And, you know, it's always easy to blame the people you love.
Right.
So are there for you. So, you know, the little things started becoming big things.
Right.
Can
you elaborate a little more on that?
Well, I think the problem with me, I think, in the marriage was that I was so into just being the supportive wife.
Right.
You know, and I was like, oh, he's been through this situation. I need to try to make things easier for him. So anytime he was angry, I didn't get angry back.
Okay.
At all. So I would just be kind of try to make things better. I was always trying to fix everything. And this one time, I had cleaned the whole house because I was doing my little Susie home wife thing.
So you're not working, or you weren't working?
No, I wasn't working. This was in the middle of the desert. I wasn't working at the time, and I cleaned the whole house while he was at work, and you know, trying to be special. But I forgot to put a fork away that was in the dishwasher. Okay. And he got very upset, and he came to me. I was in the bathroom at the time putting on mascara. I don't remember why, but and he said, "You can't even finish putting away the dishes. You don't know what you're doing." Like, and I remember I said, "I'm not your maid." Right. And that was the first time I'd actually talked back at all. And that was the first time he punched the wall, but I was kind of like, so I think there was a little change at that point when I realized that he was going to get mad over things like that. I got a bit more stubborn. But you know, it's like, the day after the wedding, like that, we wanted to leave that night. Okay. To drive down to California. Okay. You know, and my mom had generously booked us a hotel room for our wedding night and all this stuff, and he was kind of frustrated with that. He's like, I wanted to get going, you know, so we spent the night, but then the next day, like, again, it was just really fixated on leaving and going and moving on. And like, I was actually almost forced to leave my cat behind because we couldn't find him at the time.
And he just wanted to go, like he wasn't waiting for that cat.
Yes, he got fixated on that we had to go. Wow. So that was the first couple years were definitely the worst. Okay. They were, I can't really go into it too much, but it was really a struggle. In fact, I think my whole marriage I kind of considered like a battle. Like I had these like little battles I would fight to try to win the war. And it was a lot of work, and it was exhausting, and it's hard when the person you love the most doesn't seem to...
Take a deep breath. It's okay.
When they don't seem to care if you're happy.
He didn't care if you were happy?
I don't think he even wanted me around.
Why do you think he decided to get married then? I mean, especially at such a young age. It's okay, right?
I asked him that question so many times.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of different answers, depending on his mood, so... I'm not sure I'll ever really know that one.
Right.
The best I could come up with was that I think some people get married to kind of try to keep someone with them. You know, they might be afraid that that the person will leave them, and it's a way to keep them close. And it's not, that sounds malicious, and I don't mean it that way. Everyone wants to belong to someone or have someone belong to them and, you know, have this bond with people. That's why people get married for the most part. But I think a lot of times people use it in a well-meaning sense to keep someone. And that's the only thing I can really think of. I think he did love me very much. I know it's hard to hear the story and understand that, but he was my very best friend for a really long time. And I think sometimes when you put someone in a spouse position instead of someone as a friend, it changes the dynamics in kind of an alarming way.
Right. And I mean, it does, and especially when you're still growing and learning yourself.
Yeah.
We will be right back on Remake TV. We are talking to Rachel, a teenage bride with a heartbreaking story. Marriage is a hard thing for any age, but to get married at 17 just adds all these worries and concerns to it. So go get a drink of water, fluff your pillows, walk your dog, close your door, whatever you need to do, and come right back to check out this second part of this episode. Welcome back to Remake TV. You are watching The Elephant in the Room, and today we are talking about teenage marriage. I know you all know it exists, but what really happens in a teenage marriage? I mean, is it because of pregnancy? Is it because of money? Rachel here, it was because of a deployment now did he go to Afghanistan, Iraq? Iraq. A deployment to Iraq. So she married him at the young age of 17 to make sure that should anything happen to him, he heard the news. So before the break, Rachel, we were talking about how hard it was, and he came back a different person than you married.
Absolutely. But I also think that it's not just war that does that. I really strongly feel that, like, between the ages, like your teenage years and just say even your 20s, which is only just like 5-6 years down the road, you don't really know who you are yet, or what you're going to want, or, you know, what your life is going to be like. So even without him coming back a different person, I feel like he still would have changed, and I would have changed. Well,
absolutely. I mean, you completely changed from when you were a teenager.
Completely. I can't even recognize that person anymore. So, yes, he came back completely different, and that did cause a lot of issues, especially the anger. But it's just a thing I think people really need to keep in mind of, is that I'm not saying the love isn't real. Believe me, the love is very real. It's just a matter of being aware of that some people grow and change together, other people grow and change apart.
Right.
And the amount of love isn't what determines that.
Right. Now, what did you want at 17? I mean, you got married, and you said that you weren't working, you were a wife, but I mean, when you're growing and changing, you're finding yourself in what you wanted to do. What did you want to do?
I think basically I wanted to be happy.
Right.
I wanted to be with someone who loved me, and I loved them. I wanted to travel. I wanted to feel secure and safe and independent. It wasn't so much I had a direct thing of how that would happen or what I would do. I think most of my wants were tied up in him. You know, in him being happy and supporting him and what he wanted to do, because at the time I didn't really have any dreams or goals of my own and explicit. So for a long time, that was my goal in life, was just basically to make him happy.
Now, how long did your marriage last?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. So, and there was a lot of emotional issues going on, but what do you think was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back? What was the last straw?
You know what? It was actually something kind of small in comparison to other things. There was trust issues in my relationship, a lot of trust issues, and I came across a conversation he had had with someone else.
Oh.
No, it wasn't like that. He wasn't cheating, but he said something about me.
Oh.
I felt was really hurtful.
Okay. What did he say, or?
Something about, I think someone asked him if I was pregnant.
Right.
And he said, definitely not with her.
Oh.
And for me, that was kind of like, okay, so I'm not fit to be the mother of your children?
Yeah.
And in that moment, even though part of me realized that, because he could go into these spontaneous attitudes, that he may not mean that necessarily, the other part of me was kind of just like, no. No, I don't know this person. I don't need to be with someone who says that.
Right.
Me. And I talked to him about it, and I told him I wasn't sure that I wanted to be married to him anymore.
And what did he say?
For the first time, he suggested we go to marriage counseling.
Huh.
And we did go. And I think it was actually marriage counseling that helped me make up my mind to leave him.
Really? Because that's generally not the intent of marriage counseling.
I suppose, but the question kept coming up during the sessions, why am I here?
Yeah.
You know, not why am I here in the session, but why am I here? When you're in a place, and we had a great therapist, she just cut right through the bull, you know, just...
Yeah.
She didn't let us get away with anything. It was fantastic. But, you know, when you start hearing his thoughts...
Yeah.
And the way he thinks of you, or why he doesn't think something is an issue, or
right.
what he actually wants out of the relationship, and then you compare it to what a happy, healthy marriage is, and what you want, which is not much. It just kept coming up in my head, why am I here? Why am I here? If I'm not making him happy, and I'm miserable, you know, and if me being here is keeping him from growing,
right,
and I thought it was helping him, then why am I here?
Right.
And that was pretty much it. So I talked to him. I was going to visit my family, and I talked to him before I left, and I was basically like, look, how would you feel about going back to being friends?
Yeah.
You know, and he was like, well, I need to think about that, because it's something that had kind of come up before, because we pretty much discussed it many, many times, the fact that I felt he wasn't in love with me. I wasn't the kind of person, I mean, I was always talking about it with him and seeing how we could fix it and make it better. And then I went on the trip, and I felt this kind of strength, almost. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Not happening. So I made up my mind pretty quickly. As soon as I got back, I told him, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. I mean, your first love is very special.
Well, when I came back, he obviously had thought about it, and he actually picked me up at the airport, which he never did. Mm-hmm. And he had this letter for me about how much he loved me and how much he was going to try to make everything better. And I had to read it, and I just had to look at him and say, no.
Even though he was trying to make this effort?
Yeah, because it wasn't the first time he had made that kind of an effort. And I realized that what we wanted was so different.
Right.
The lifestyles we wanted were so different that even if we didn't have those marital problems that we had very strongly, we still were, one of us would have had to give up everything they wanted.
Right.
For the other person to be happy. And in our relationship, that would have been me.
Right.
And I wasn't prepared to do that when half the time he didn't even want me around.
Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared to do that when I felt like I had no support from him. And I also realized that I was always trying to fix everything for him, and because of that, he wasn't growing as a person. He wasn't doing everything he could do to become happy and better, and his happiness is really important to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
so you clearly still cared about him. I mean, it wasn't just about you.
No, absolutely. And I love him so much.
Yeah.
But I have to say, since I've been gone, he has been making some positive changes in his life. And I have as well. Like, I'm in school now. I'm looking for a job. I've actually, for the first time in my life, thinking about what I want to do with my future and how I can make it happen and what my likes are and preferences. And it's kind of interesting. It's a little scary. It's scary to... I've never been alone before, but I'm learning to like it.
Do you think that some time apart might fix the issues that you had and you might try again?
No.
No.
There's been a lot of damage.
Yeah. Yes, it's very clear.
The most I could hope for is that one day we could be really close friends again like we were. I mean, I know we both care about each other really deeply, but when you have that level of hurt between you and the trust has been broken, and it's very hard.
Right.
That's the best I could hope for.
Right.
Because I can't imagine him not being a part of my life. But I also can't imagine going back there.
So, do you ever think, I mean, you two were very young and you went through a lot of changes. Do you ever think teenage marriage can work?
Oh, I think that if two people who are older than their age and have extenuating circumstances, I think it can work. It's not the ideal. Like I said, you don't know who you are. I've heard of it working, which is amazing. It's never going to be easy.
Right.
I don't think there's going to be a marriage on the planet where you don't want to just give up at some point.
Well, I mean, and that's true of marriage of any age, whether it's 17 or 70 in your fifth marriage. Like, it's never an easy thing to do.
Yeah, but it's not so much the level of maturity, it's just the fact that you're going to change.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you won't love them.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I just wonder, most of the time I just kind of wonder what's the rush. I understand why people usually decide to marry so very young. I mean, I get that they want to be with that person, and they can do that. But in my opinion, divorce is a very expensive way to break up.
First-hand experience right there.
More than you'd think. I was shocked. And to be honest, if I was in any other circumstance, there could have been a situation where even in my really unfortunately sad marriage, I maybe wouldn't have been able to afford to leave him.
Wow.
And I would have had to go to, maybe if I had a different circumstance, I would have probably had to go to a women's shelter or somewhere. And that's something to really consider, is that you may not be able to get out as easily as you get into it.
Right.
And I'm not saying that marriages are going to turn out like mine, or that you'd have to escape, or that you won't have, or maybe you'll have money problems. I'm just saying that marriage is such a serious commitment.
Right.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I still believe that. But it's never something that should be rushed into.
Right. Right. Do you think that you'll get married again?
If I ever did, it would be a very long way down the road, and I would have to be just completely sure of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to, we would already have to be kind of married.
Right.
We would already have to have lived together. I would already have to know what his expectations were in a marriage.
Right.
Because everyone has an idea of what a husband is, what a wife is, and somehow, whenever they get married to someone, they think they're going to fit that.
Right.
That little idea.
Of course, yeah.
Kind of hilarious, but very true. I'm not sure that I would, but I don't like to close any doors. It's not something I yearn for.
What advice do you have, I mean, to girls who are in your situation? Because your reason was a very valid one. If something had happened to him over there, you wouldn't have spoken to him again. You wouldn't know him necessarily for months. So what advice do you have to girls who want to get married in their teenage years?
Please wait. If he loves you now, he'll love you then.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have a really urgent matter where it has to be now, trust him. Because marriage isn't a reason to keep people together. That's like having a baby to fix a faulty marriage. It's the same. It doesn't fix anything. In fact, it makes things more difficult.
Right.
I think, personally, the longer you have before the marriage, is what's going to set your whole foundation with that person and create it into something really strong and really beautiful. I mean, girls, I know you love him, and I know you're probably very mature and you've thought about this, but I mean, why now? Why not a few years down the road when you start to form your goals and exactly who you're going to be with your life?
Right.
I mean, there's so much in life. I know it's hard to see it, but there's so much there and so much opportunity that until you really start to find yourself, which is never ending, really.
Right.
And him find himself. And if those both come together and you both have that same goal and that same want and that same love, then go for it. But you know, no rush. Why rush?
Now you are starting to find yourself now. At 17, you didn't know what you wanted to do or where you wanted to go. Was there anything in your marriage that kind of inspired you to, I mean, you're going to school for marketing, inspired you to take control of your life? Or do you think that as long as you were married, you would not have gone anywhere or done essentially anything?
There was definitely things that inspired me, because it was a really kind of hard existence, and creativity kind of gave me an out. Like, I love my photography and I like drawing a lot. And those were always things I could do to help kind of remove myself from the situation.
Right.
So that gave me a hint on what I'd like to do, but to be honest, loving him was so much work.
Right.
That I didn't have the energy to function. So no, as long as I was married to him, I'm not sure that I would have been able to really do what I need to do to be who I want to be.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story today, Rachel. I appreciate it, and I wish you the best of luck in all that you're going to, and for healing as well.
Thank you.
All right, so you have been watching Remake TV. I'm Jasmine Bowen, and this is the elephant in the room. Teenage marriage. Marriage is hard at any age, but teenage marriage, whole different set of issues, as we learned today with Rachel. So this is the end of our show. Tell all your friends about our great contest. Don't forget to click on our contest banner and you can win $500 just for telling your friends about this great episode you watched on Remake TV. And at the secret end of our contest, top secret, we won't tell you when it ends, but you could win $10,000. $10,000 just for telling your friends about great people like Rachel. So until next time, stay smart. Remember to look at real people and real issues. Signing off.